Hi, today we're going to be learning about solving equations with fractions. First, I'm going to quickly go through the process we need to follow when we solve equations with fractions with you, and then we're going to go on to some examples. So first, when you get an equation with fractions, you need to find the LCD, or the lowest common denominator. So you need to determine the smallest expression that all denominators in the whole equation can divide into evenly. Once you've found the LCD, you need to combine all the terms on the left of the equation into a single fraction with the LCD as the denominator, and then do the same thing on the right as well. You need to adjust each numerator by multiplying it by the factors that its denominator is missing compared to the LCD. Now this step, you actually don't need to write down. You don't need to actually show the step. You can skip it and go on to the next step. The next step is to multiply through by the LCD. And when you do that, you're going to eliminate the fractions because the denominators are going to cancel. Okay, so then you'll end up with just an equation that has the numerators equal to each other. And then you can go and solve the equation as normal. Okay, so let's have a look at an example. In this example, we've got 2 over 5 minus 3x minus 7 over 10 equal to 2. Okay, so let's have a look at how we would do this question. Okay, so the very first thing that you need to do when you get a question where you've got an equation with fractions is you need to find the LCD and write it down. So the LCD for this particular question, if you look over here, the denominators, I've got 5 and 10. So the LCD is going to be 10. Okay, so you need to find the LCD and write it down. Then once you've found the LCD, you need to take all the terms on the left and combine them into one fraction with the LCD as a denominator, and then do the same thing on the right as well. But remember, you can actually leave the step out. You don't have to physically show it. I'm going to show it this time, but then from then on, I'm not going to anymore. Okay, so over here on the left, I'm going to combine these into one fraction where I have 10 as my denominator. So it's going to be 10 at the bottom of the fraction, and at the top of the fraction, I have to multiply 5 by 2 to get 10, so I times the top by 2. It is only one term, so I can just multiply it immediately. So 2 times 2 is 4, and then I have a minus, and then this over here, remember when you've got two terms in the top of your fraction, you have to put it in brackets. Over here, the 10 is already the same as the denominator, so I don't need to multiply by anything, but I do need to put that 3x minus 7 in brackets. And that is equal to the other side, which I also need to turn into a fraction with 10 as the denominator. So it's also going to be over 10. And when I put this over 10, remember at the moment before I put it over 10, it was actually over an invisible 1. So we need to multiply that 1 by 10 to get 10. So I multiply the top by 10, and that gives me 20. Okay, so this is what I end up with if I change the left-hand side into one fraction with the LCD as the denominator, and I change the right-hand side into one fraction with the LCD as the denominator. This is what I will end up with. But now the next step is to multiply through by the LCD. And when you do that, if I multiply by the LCD over here, it's going to cancel with that 10 over there. And if I multiply by the LCD over here, it's also going to cancel with this 10 over here. So then I'm going to be left with just the numerators equal to each other. So now I can say that I have 4 minus 3x minus 7 equals 20. So that's why I said you can leave out the step completely. Instead of writing it as the fractions like this, you can just write the numerators, but you have got to remember when you do it to put your brackets in, and don't forget about terms where it doesn't look like a fraction. You have to still multiply by the LCD for those terms as well. So you just take each of the terms and you do it as though you were going to be changing it into a fraction over the denominator. You use the same process that we used when we were doing adding and subtracting algebraic fractions, that you need to put, if you've got more than one term in your numerator, you have to put it in brackets, and you multiply by whatever that fraction's denominator was missing from the LCD. But when you're doing it for an equation, because you're going to end up multiplying by the LCD and cancelling it out, you can leave out the step of actually physically writing it over the LCD, and you can go straight to writing it like this over here. Okay, once you've got it to this point, you can then go and simplify and solve as normal. So I'm going to multiply my negative 1 in here. So it's going to be 4. Then negative 1 times 3x is minus 3x. Negative 1 times negative 7 is plus 7. Equals 20, and then I get over here negative 3x equals 20 minus 4 and minus 7 is 9. And then we need to go and divide by the negative 3. So I get, therefore, x is equal to positive divided by negative is negative. 9 divided by 3 is 3. So that you should get for this example, that x is equal to negative 3. Okay, now I'm going to give you a few that you're going to do for yourself. In this first one, you've got x over 5 plus 1 equals 5. You need to solve for x. I'm going to give you 1 minute to solve this equation. Okay, so let's go through that question. Okay, so over here, the first thing I have to do is find my LCD. And remember I said we do need to write that LCD down. Because I'm not going to be writing it with it over the LCD, I actually have to write the LCD on the side over here to say what the LCD is that I'm working with. Okay, so the LCD, you should have found for this question that the LCD is 5. Okay, remember this over here is over an invisible 1, and this is over an invisible 1 as well. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is pretend that I was putting this over 5 over here. So this one is already over 5, so it doesn't change, so it's just going to stay x. But this one is over 1. I need to multiply that by 5, so I times the top by 5 and I get plus 5 equals. Then over here, this is also over 1, so I need to multiply by 5, so I times the top by 5 and that becomes 25. So now I'm going to go and solve for x. So I need to get rid of the 5 over here by subtracting 5 on both sides. So therefore, x is equal to 25 minus 5, which is 20. So that's what you should have got for question A, that x is 20. Let's go on to question B. In question B, we've got 5x over 6 plus 2 over 3 equals 4. Let's give you 1 minute for this one as well. Okay, so let's go through that question. Right, so I'm going to start off by finding my LCD. My denominators here are 6 and 3, so the LCD is going to be 6. So I write that down over here, that the LCD is 6. Okay, so now let's go and see what we need to do to all of the numerators over here. So for the first fraction, this has already got a denominator of 6, so I don't need to multiply by anything. So the top is going to stay the same, and because it's only one term, I don't need to put it in brackets. So it's just 5x. And then over here, I need to multiply 3 by 2 to get 6. So I'm going to times the top by 2 as well, and that gives me 4 equals. Then remember this 4 over here is over an invisible 1. So I'm timesing 1 by 6 to get 6. So I times the top by 6 and that gives me 24. Okay, so now I need to go and solve for x. So I'm going to get rid of the 4 on this side by subtracting on both sides. So I get 5x equals 20. And then I'm going to divide by 5 on both sides to get x on its own. So therefore, x is equal to 4. So that's what you should have got for question B, that x is 4. Right, let's go on to question C. Here we've got 2x plus 3 over 4 equal to 5 over 2. I'm going to give you 1 minute for this one as well. Okay, so let's go through that question. So the first thing I need to do is find my LCD. For this question, I've got denominators 4 and 2. So the LCD is going to be 4. Okay, which means I need to take each of these denominators and make them the same as that. So this one over here is already 4, so I don't need to do anything to it, so that means I don't need to do anything to the numerator either. Now normally, because this has got more than one term, I would put it in brackets, but there's nothing in front of it and I'm not multiplying it by anything. So for this particular example, I don't actually need to put this one in brackets. If there was a minus in front, or if I was multiplying by anything, then I would have to put it in brackets. But in this particular case, I don't need to. So I can just write 2x plus 3 equals, and then over here, I'm going to multiply 2 by 2 to get 4. So then I times the top by 2, and that gives me 10. Okay, so now we can go and solve for x. So I have 2x equals, I need to subtract 3 on both sides, that gives me 7. Then I need to divide by 2 on both sides, so therefore x is equal to 7 over 2. We can't simplify that, so we're done with that question. So that's what you should have got for question C. Now let's go on to question D. For question D, we've got x over 3 minus 2x minus 1 all over 5 equal to 2. I'm going to give you 1 minute for this one as well. Okay, so let's go through that question. So over here, I've got 3 and 5 as my denominators. So my LCD is going to be 15. So now I need to multiply 3 by 5 to get 15. So I need to multiply the top by 5, and that gives me 5x. Then I've got minus. I need to multiply the 5 by 3 to get 15. So I need to multiply the top by 3. And remember, I have to put, because it's more than one term, I need to put it in brackets. So it's 3, and then in brackets, 2x minus 1 equals, and then over here, this 2 is over an invisible little 1, which I have to multiply by 15 to get 15. So I times the top by 15, and that gives me 30. Okay, so now we can go and solve our equation. So because I've got brackets, I first need to multiply those brackets out before I can go and solve. So I'm going to have 5x, then negative 3 times 2x is minus 6x, and negative 3 times negative 1 is plus 3, equals 30. Okay, so now on the left, I've got 5x minus 6x, and there are no other x's. That gives me negative x on the left, equals. Then I need to get rid of the 3 on the side, so I'm going to subtract 3 on both sides. So that gives me 30 minus 3, which is 27. So now if I want to know what x is, I'm going to divide both sides by -1. So that gives me x is negative 27. So that's what you should have got for question D, that x is negative 27. Right, let's go on to question E. For question E, we've got x minus 2 all over 3 plus x equal to 3 over 2. I'm going to give you 1 minute for this one as well. Okay, so let's go through that question. Okay, so over here my denominators are 3 and 2, so my LCD is going to be 6. So I need to multiply 3 by 2 to get 6. So I'm going to multiply the top by 2, and that gives me 2, and then in brackets, because this is 2 terms, x minus 2. Then over here, the x has got a denominator of 1, because you can't see the denominator, so it's 1. So we multiply 1 by 6, so I multiply the top by 6, and that gives me plus 6x equals, I need to multiply 2 by 3 to get 6, so I'm going to times the top by 3, and that gives me 9. Okay, so now we're going to go and solve for x. So first I'm going to multiply out my brackets. So I've got 2 times x is 2x. Then 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. Then I've got plus 6x equals 9. So I'm going to keep the x's on the left-hand side. So I've got 2x plus 6x, that's 8x, equals, then I need to get rid of the negative 4 over here. So I'm going to add 4 on both sides. So I have 9 plus 4, which is 13. So then I'm going to divide by 8 on both sides. So that gives me x equals 13 over 8, which we can't simplify. So that's what you should have got for x. Okay, let's go on to question F. In question F, we've got 3x plus 2 all over 4 minus x over 3 plus 1 equals x plus 2 all over 4 plus 1 over 3. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to solve this equation. Okay, so let's go through that question. So first, my denominators here are 4, 3, 4, and 3. So my LCD is going to be 12. Okay, so over here I need to multiply 4 by 3 to get 12. So I'm going to multiply the top by 3, and that gives me 3 times, in brackets, 3x plus 2. Then I have minus. I need to multiply 3 by 4 to get 12. So I'm going to multiply the top by 4, and that gives me 4x. Plus, here the 1 is over 1, so I need to multiply it by 12. So I'm going to times the top by 12, and that gives me 12. Equals, I need to multiply this 4 by 3 to get 12. So I'm going to multiply the top by 3, so it's going to be 3 times, in brackets, x plus 2. And then plus, I'm going to times this by 4, so I'm going to times the top by 4, and that gives me 4. Okay, so now I'm going to go and multiply out my brackets. So I have 3 times 3x is 9x. Then 3 times 2 is plus 6. Then I've got minus 4x plus 12 equals 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 2 is plus 6. And then plus 4. Okay, so on the left, I'm going to have my x's. So I've got 9x minus 4x. And then I need to get rid of this 3x over here. So I'm going to subtract 3x on both sides. So I'm going to have minus 3x as well. So it's 9x minus 4x minus 3x. That gives me 2x equals. And then for my constants, I've got over here plus 6 and plus 6. If I subtract 6 on both sides, they're going to cancel each other out. So those can disappear like that. And then I need to get rid of the 12 on this side over here. So I'm going to subtract 12 on both sides. So that gives me 4 minus 12, which is negative 8. So now I have 2x equal to negative 8. So therefore, x is equal to negative 8 divided by 2, which is negative 4. So that's what you should have got for question F, that x is negative 4. Okay, now let's go on to question G. In question G, we've got a half and then x plus 5 in brackets equal to 2 plus 2 over 5 and then x minus 3 in brackets. I'm going to give you 2 minutes for this one as well. Okay, so let's go through that question. Okay, so the first thing you need to know when you get a question like this is that this can actually be written so that it looks like a normal equation with fractions, the same as the other ones we've been doing. Remember, when you've got a fraction in front of something, whether it's a variable or in this case brackets, we can just combine this into that fraction. We can put it up with the numerator because this is actually multiplication and this is over 1. So over here, I'm multiplying the numerator by the numerator and the denominator by the denominator. So I can just take this and put it up with that numerator. Because this is a 1, it's not going to do anything to the x plus 5, so I don't need to keep the x plus 5 in brackets. I can just write it as x plus 5 over 2. That's equal to 2. And then over here, I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I don't have a 1 at the top, I've got a 2 at the top. So I'm going to keep that 2, and I'm going to keep the x minus 3 in brackets. So I'm going to have 2, and then in brackets, x minus 3, and that all goes over my denominator of 5. So over here, that's over 5. So now it looks more like the kinds of questions that we've been doing so far. The only difference is I still have these brackets over here, but that's not going to be a major issue. I'm going to show you how we're going to deal with that in the next step. So first I need to find my LCD. So I've got a 2 and a 5 in my denominators, so my LCD is going to be 10. Right, so over here I need to multiply 2 by 5 to get 10. So I'm going to times the top by 5, and that gives me 5 times in brackets x plus 5 equals, then this 2 is over an invisible 1, so I times that by 10, and then I times the top by 10, and that gives me 20. That's a plus over there. So I have plus, and then over here I'm going to multiply 5 by 2 to get 10. Now when I multiply the top by 2, I can just multiply this by 2, and then I'm going to end up multiplying it into the bracket as well. I'm not going to multiply this and the brackets by 2, because that's going to end up multiplying by 2 twice, which is then multiplying by 4. So I'm going to multiply just this over here by 2, and then I will end up multiplying it into the brackets after that. Okay, so the 2 times 2 is 4, and then I've got my x minus 3 in brackets. Now I can go and multiply out my brackets and solve for x. So 5 times x is 5x, 5 times 5 is plus 25 equals 20, and then 4 times x is positive 4x, and 4 times negative 3 is minus 12. Okay, so now I've multiplied out my brackets, I can go and solve for x. So I'm going to remove the 4x on the right by subtracting 4x on both sides, so that's 5x minus 4x is x equals, then over here I've got 20 minus 12 is 8. I need to get rid of the 25 on the side by subtracting 25 on both sides. So I've got 8 minus 25. That gives me negative 17. So you should have got that x is negative 17 for that question. Okay, now let's go on to equations where the unknown is in the denominator. Now this is going to work mostly the same as what we've been doing up until this point. We're still going to find the LCD. We're still going to multiply through by the LCD. We're still going to end up solving our equation. So everything we've done up until this point is still going to be the same, but you just have to be careful when you get to the end of the question that you check your answer and make sure that it works, because we have some restrictions. When the unknown, or in this case x, is in the denominator, you have to make sure that it doesn't end up making your denominator equal to 0, because if your denominator is equal to 0, it means you're dividing by 0, which we can't do because then it's undefined. Okay, so you need to make sure once you have solved your equation that your whatever value you get for x doesn't make your denominator equal to 0, because if it does, then it can't be a solution to the equation. Okay, let's have a look at an example. In this example, we've got 1 over 4 plus 2 over 5x equal to x plus 4 all over 10x. Okay, so let's have a look at how we would solve this equation. Okay, so first of all, I need to find my LCD, just like I was doing with the other questions. So I've got a denominator here of 4, I've got 5x, and I've got 10x. So first we look at our numbers. 4, 5, and 10 give me an LCD of 20. And then I also have to have x, because I've got x in these two denominators as well. Okay, so my LCD is going to be 20x, not just 20. Okay, so now let's have a look at what we need to do to 4 to get 20x. I need to multiply 4 by 5x to get 20x. So I'm going to multiply the top by 5x, and that gives me 1 times 5x, which is just 5x. Plus, then over here, I've got a denominator of 5x. I need to multiply that by 4 to get 20x. So I'm going to times the top by 4, and that gives me 2 times 4, which is 8, equals. Over here, my denominator is 10x. I need to times that by 2 to get 20x. So I'm going to times the top by 2, so I have 2, and then in brackets, x plus 4. Okay, now we're going to go and multiply out and solve for x. So I've got 5x plus 8 equals 2 times x is 2x, and 2 times 4 is plus 8. So now we're going to go and solve for x. So I've got 5x minus 2x is 3x equals 8 minus 8 is 0. So therefore, x is equal to 0 divided by 3, which is 0. But now I've got a problem, because if x is 0, then this over here is going to be 5 times 0, which is 0, which means I'm dividing by 0. So if x is 0, it makes my denominators, you can even just check it against the LCD. If your value for x makes the LCD 0, it means that it cannot be a solution. So now I say, but x can't be equal to 0, and the reason it can't be 0 is because it makes it undefined, because then I'm dividing by 0. So therefore, there is no solution. Okay, so you always need to check and see if the value that you get for x causes your LCD to be 0. And if it does, it means that there's no solution. Okay, now I'm going to give you a few that you're going to do for yourself. In question A, we've got 3 over x minus 1 equals 5 over 4 minus 6 over 2x. I'm going to give you 1 minute to solve this equation. Okay, so let's go through that question. So over here, first, my LCD, I'm going to look at my numbers. I've got 4 and 2, so that's going to be 4. And then I also have x in my denominator, so I need to have x in my LCD over there. Okay, so my LCD is 4x. So I need to multiply x by 4 to get 4x. So I'm going to times the top by 4, and that gives me 12. Then minus, then this over here is over 1. So I need to multiply it by 4x to get 4x. So I'm going to times the top by 4x, and that gives me minus 4x equals. Over here, I need to multiply the 4 by x to get 4x. So I'm going to times the top by x, and that gives me 5x minus the 2x. I need to multiply by 2 to get 4x. So I'm going to multiply the top by 2, and that gives me minus 12. Okay, now we're going to go and solve for x. So I've got negative 4x, and then minus 5x is minus 9x equals negative 12 minus 12 is negative 24. Then I need to go and divide by negative 9. So I've got a negative divided by negative is positive 24 over 9. I can simplify this. 3 goes into 24 8 times. So I've got 8 over 3 goes into 9 3 times. So it's 8 over 3. So that's what you should have got for question A. And then if I go and check this, 8 over 3 is not going to make my denominator 0. The only thing that would make it 0 is if x was equal to 0. So this is a valid solution. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. In question B, we've got 2 plus 2 over 3x equals 4 over x plus 1 over 3. I'm going to give you 1 minute for this one as well. Okay, so let's go through that question. So first, my LCD. If I look at my numbers, I've got 3 and I've got 3. So the number part of my LCD is going to be 3. And then I've got x and I've got x. So I've got 3x for my LCD. Okay, so over here, this 2 is over 1. So I need to multiply it by the whole LCD, which is 3x. So it's going to be 2 times 3x, which is 6x, plus this one is already over 3x. So I don't need to multiply by anything. So it's going to be 2 equals. Then over here, I need to multiply x by 3 to get 3x. So I'm going to times the top by 3, and that gives me 12. Plus, I need to multiply 3 by x to get 3x. So I'm going to times the top by x, and that gives me 1x, or just x. Okay, so now I have 6x plus 2 equals 12 plus x. So 6x minus x is 5x equals 12 minus 2, which is 10. So now I can say, therefore, x is equal to 10 divided by 5, which is 2. Okay, now if I check that, if x is 2, it's not going to make my LCD 0, because the only way that my LCD would be 0 is if x is 0. So this is a valid solution. So that's what we should have got for question B. Right, let's go on to question C. We've got 4 over x minus 2 equal to x plus 8 all over 2x. Okay, I'm going to give you 1 minute for this one as well. Okay, so let's go through that question. Right, so over here, first my LCD. If you look at the numbers, it's just 1 and 2. So the number part of the LCD is going to be 2. And then I've got x and x. So my LCD is going to have x as well. So it's 2x. Right, so over here, I need to multiply x by 2 to get 2x. So I'm going to times the top by 2, and that gives me 8. Minus, this 2 over here is over 1. So I need to times it by the whole LCD, which is 2x. So 2 times 2x is 4x equals, then over here I've got x plus 8 over 2x. The denominator is already the same as the LCD, so I don't need to multiply by anything. And there's nothing in front of this fraction that I need to multiply in either. There's no minus and there's nothing else in front of it, so I don't need to worry about putting these in brackets. So I just have x plus 8. If I was multiplying by anything, or if there was a minus in front, I would have to put that in brackets. Okay, now we're going to go and solve for x. So I've got negative 4x minus x is negative 5x equals 8 minus 8 is 0. So therefore, x is equal to 0 divided by negative 5, which is 0. Now over here, I've got a problem, because if x is 0, my LCD or any of these denominators are going to be a problem. Here I'm dividing by x, so I'd be dividing by 0. Here I'm dividing by 2 times x, so if x is 0, I'm dividing by 0 as well. So that means that x cannot be equal to 0. Because it means that I'm dividing by 0. So there is no solution. So that you should have got for question C, that there is no solution. Okay, then the last one for today, we've got question D. 5 over 6 plus 2 over 4x equals 2 times x minus 1 in brackets all over 3x. I'm going to give you 1 minute for this one as well. Okay, so let's go through that question. So first, my LCD, I've got 6 and 4 and 3 for the numbers in my denominators. The LCD for the 6 and the 4 and the 3 would be 12. And then I also have x over here and x over there, so my LCD also needs to have x in it. Okay, so my LCD is 12x. So I need to multiply 6 by 2x to get 12x. So I'm going to multiply the top over here by 2x, and that gives me 10x plus. Here I need to multiply by 3 to get 12x, so I'm going to times the top by 3, and that gives me plus 6 equals. Now over here I've got something outside the brackets. Remember, I'm only going to multiply by what is in front over here. I'm not going to multiply into the brackets as well, because I'm going to end up multiplying into the brackets later. So I'm going to multiply 3x by 4 to get 12x. So I'm going to multiply the top by 4, and that gives me 8 over here, and then x minus 1. Okay, so now I'm going to go and get rid of my brackets. So I've got 10x plus 6 equals 8 times x is 8x, and 8 times negative 1 is minus 8. So I've got 10x minus 8x is 2x equals negative 8 minus 6 is negative 14. And then I can go and divide by 2, so therefore x is equal to negative 7. And if you check this over here, if x is negative 7, it's not going to cause you to divide by 0, because the only way you would end up dividing by 0 is if x is 0. So over here, this is a valid solution. So that is what you should have got for question D, that x is negative 7. Okay, and that's how we solve equations with fractions. Now that we've learned the concepts in this lesson, it's important to practice, practice, practice. If you haven't already got the worksheet that goes with this video, you can find it by clicking on the link in the description below. The worksheet comes with an extra exercise full of questions for you to work on to master the concepts covered in this lesson. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button so that others can benefit from it too. Also, be sure to subscribe so that you can easily find my other lessons, and hit the bell so that you will get notified about lessons as I upload them.